Happy effing Friday, everybody. My guest today was diagnosed with what doctors call suicide disease, the most painful condition known to medicine. 2 brain surgeries later, he says he wouldn't change a thing. Let's go. Oh, dang it. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm super excited today. Owen Mecham is joining me. I think he's out of Utah. Is that right, sir?
You got it. Lehigh, Utah, just between Provo and Salt Lake.
All right. And he and I have actually very similar backgrounds and trajectories through life. We both have a bunch of kids. I think we both got married relatively young by today's standards. And then we've both been in software forever. I think you were in there before the .com bust. I was in there before the .com bust. I kind of just got grandfathered into this, kind of just being self-taught. You've been doing... you've been doing several engineering jobs for a really long time, kind of moved into like engineering management, but have been a builder of apps and tech for a really long time. But now you're moving into real estate?
Definitely, yeah. I would love to cover that with you. And first, thanks for having me on today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But yeah, and not to age either one of us too much, but yes, I got into technology in the late 90s. My first as a kid, first computer. A lot of people in the audience might not even remember the old like IBM 8086s, the computers that didn't even have hard drives at the time, right? Like 2 5.25-inch floppies and WordPerfect and Karateka, and there you go. But I spent, as part of my growing up, part of my church experience was serving as a missionary. So I lived in the Dominican Republic for just under a year when I was 19 years old. And when I left for that period of time, the internet was sort of just becoming something that where it was accessible in people's homes. And so I came home and my parents had the internet. And I'm like, wow, what the heck is this? Like when I was in 5th grade, we saved up with a bake sale to get like a very, very, I was probably like a 9600 baud modem or something crazy. But all you could do with that was we could talk to a couple of other educational servers, but still very, very fascinating. But once I saw, the quote World Wide Web, I was hooked. So I switched my major from a hardcore computer science. I was taking, C and all of the different classes at the time. No one really knew what the internet was and let alone how it was going to be monetized. And so they kind of, in the computer science department, at least at the University of Utah, oddly enough, because it was one of the foundation backbones for how the internet got started. But they kind of tucked all of the HTML type classes, JavaScript classes, quote, webmaster classes over into the communication department because it was kind of viewed as a second class citizen. But regardless, fell in love. My senior project was we built a website that integrated with a payment portal through a bank that was some PHP for the local sushi shop so people could order sushi online. So in 2002, that was actually was a lot harder than pressing 1 or 2 buttons that you have to do today. But but that kind of led to a road where I've spent basically the past 24 years in the wholesale automotive industry. Sold over 25 million cars through systems that I've helped build with a lot of other really smart people, and billions of dollars worth of vehicles, and it's been great. Current company is Carvana. I got there through acquisitions, and it's a lot of fun to see, especially how AI is shaping things, not just in the software industry, but in our day-to-day life. So that's a little bit of the picture how I got through tech, at least.
Yeah, man, dude, the late 90s and early 2000s .com bubble notwithstanding was, I don't know, I kind of look back at it, maybe it's just kind of rose-colored glasses, but there was actually art on the web, right? I was part of a really big internet services ad company for a long time. before I struck out and co-founded a design boutique web shop. But this is the days of like graphic arts, which I'm sure is still around. But back then it was like a big deal to get something from the web into these communication or commerce. It's been a long time, obviously. But there's real new stuff happening on the web, and then we've kind of gone through the days of Facebook and web apps, and then everything's kind of just looking the same material design for the last, whatever, 15 years, it seems like. But it was a really cool time to come up. There was really no gatekeeping, right? You could just sit down, and as long as you put in the effort to learn the stuff, you could actually go and make something.
Yeah, I think was definitely one of those pivotal moments in history when you look at just transformative of all of our lives, and we're at the beginning of that, and maybe a little bit past the beginning with AI. And so in some ways we're really fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you want to, if you're a glass half full or half empty type person, but to go through two of those really big fundamental shifts in our own lifetime. So, but that's sort of what got us to this point where my wife, when we kind of pivot to real estate, she's the real estate guru in our relationship. We always knew we wanted to have real estate be a part of our portfolio. When I like to copy people who are doing something better than I'm doing it, try to figure out how can I excel at that, and what patterns can I learn from them so I don't have to figure it all out on my own. And it seemed like most of the people who were doing well had played some type of real estate, had played some type of a role in their life. So she got involved in taking some classes and trainings, and started buying properties. We started out doing some flips in Utah here, and then we have some single family properties out in Indiana, and just kind of looking to continue to expand, ever grow that set of portfolio, but also looking to potentially get into multifamily, or potentially like a multifamily hybrid where we can, do some sort of rent by the room, pad split type situations where we can still stay in compliance with Utah zoning laws, but be able to take a more affordable model to the masses.
Yeah, interesting. Are you looking at doing that outside of Utah too, or strictly inside Utah?
For sure in Utah, only because pad split, one, doesn't have a very strong foothold here, and there's some regulatory challenges just with current zoning. I think it's going to be at least a couple years, or would take a fair amount of effort to get into a spot where I would feel comfortable having a property set up for a pad split configuration. I've had friends that have done that and then been shut down after the fact and have to have another exit strategy. In some cases, it worked out for them where they were able to transition to sober living or something along that lines. But in other cases, it ended up kind of having to take it on the chin, because all of a sudden you have a 8-bedroom home and a market where maybe there's 5 bedrooms and the cost associated. So I think, but as far as venturing outside, the benefit to going outside of your own state is it forces you to have really good systems in place where you're not there as sort of the catch-all if something goes sideways, where you're going to be there at last minute swinging the hammer. And so that's been actually a big plus to having a lot of our properties be out in Indiana, is it's forced us to make good contacts with people, with property management companies, with handymen, with service companies, so that it can kind of run and scale on its own. Because once that's figured out, it just is then a matter of acquiring more properties and growing your systems to account for that scale.
Yeah, and as you grow in the real estate side, do you think you're going to continue with the software side of things? This is something that I'm personally going through with as well, because I'm leaving the company that I've been at for the last 15 years. Post-acquisition, it's been 7 years since we were acquired, but since the start of it, it's been 15 years. And I've based so much of my identity up to this point on being, I'm the technologist, I'm an engineer, and my future is, well, from right here, right now, it's looking very light on technology. Totally different path, really. I'm curious if you foresee a similar path for you, or are you going to be doing stuff with technology for as far as you can see?
Sure. No, I mean, I think that's a really poignant question for anyone who's considering any type of a transition. And for me, I think the way I would position it, if I were in your shoes exactly, is I think it's real easy for what we quote do at work to be, uh, you know, a one-on-one replacement for our identity. I mean, you think about when we meet each other on the street, or we meet at at some meeting somewhere. One of the first questions typically we ask is not like, "Hey, what do you love to do? What are your hobbies?" It's like, "What do you do for work?" Right? In America, that's like what your job is like a big part of who you are. And I think the mindset that I'm trying to take into this is I want to view my identity as someone who makes an impact on the world. Sometimes that might be through technology. Sometimes it might be through a property that I can buy that can, provide a nice, comfortable home for someone to live in. But to get super specific, for me, one of the problems that I want to solve, or one of the areas where I want to make an impact, will involve technology. I had an experience a couple of years ago where I faced a really big health challenge, and coming through that challenge, just recognized my maybe lack of preparation in going through something um, as intense as that was. I ended up needing 2 different brain surgeries um, to deal with a condition that I was diagnosed with called trigeminal neuralgia, and got to a really dark place. And part of my kind of journey of healing was, step one was heal the body, get the brain and everything working well. And then step two, though, was, it might sound like the same thing, but healing the mind, more so meaning the attitude, the mindsets, the approach that I had to life. And so as I started doing a lot of that work, um, what I noticed was that as I was trying to live my life more intentionally, finding more reasons to be grateful, taking time to write down my goals, and kind of cast forward this positive view of what I wanted the rest of my life to look like, I saw it start to rub off on my kids. So, you mentioned earlier, we both have kids. I've got 4 daughters, and now a grandson that's a little over 3 months old, which is hard to believe. But
Yeah, definitely.
the what I saw, though, is like when you come home and you see that your 15-year-old has written down, like on the family whiteboard as you walk into the house, like, things I'm doing so I can play college volleyball. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and do this. And all of a sudden start to look at uh, the world as a place where the possibilities are only limited to your own imagination, versus approaching life from a standpoint of lack. I started to just see more smiles in my home. I started to see my
Mm,
kids, uh, just all in all, have more success in their life. And I realized, what if I could do something to help share that, and make that learning that we've had together as a family more accessible? And so I'm working on an app that's called Warrior Thoughts. It's going to be focused on helping kids and teens improve both their mindsets, and then hopefully also their mental health. So it's in
hmm.
early phases of development. I'll try to have a website up for it before your podcast airs, so people can go and find out more about it. But um, really, one of the impacts that I want to make in my life is, when you go to a funeral, I've never been to a funeral where someone announced, "Hey, here's so and so. He had a net worth of X, and that meant he was really successful." They're talking about what was the impact that this person had on someone else's life. And so when I'm gone, I want to make sure that I've made an impact on at least one other person. So hopefully this app is a way for me to do that, and to take the talents that I've learned through decades of software development and hopefully translate that into improved life for someone else.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's a very noble goal.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Uh, I think it's going to be successful and looking to have my prototype done by the beginning of the year. So I've got some cranking of code to get done, but that's the life as you're well familiar with.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You gotta, the Balmer Peak. You probably don't drink, so it's not going to mean too much. But the the Balmer Peak is this chart. I forget. Maybe it's XKCD. Maybe it's just something else. But it's basically blood alcohol content to programming productivity.
Okay,
Is
gotcha.
the chart. And the Balmer Peak is like a very specific blood alcohol content before your productivity just plummets. But at that
living in Utah, I think it's more strictly like a caffeination peak. That's the area that I happen to have studied in great depth. So it's a certain number. I think it's 2.5 Mountain Dews for me gets to peak productivity. So,
yeah, mine was Red Bull. Those were the days. You just crack 3 Red Bulls over the course of a night, and you work until 10 a.m. the next day, and fall asleep, and then get right back at it.
Yeah, those days are behind me, thankfully.
I mean, yeah, good for the most part, but there's still days where I'm just like, that would be really fun. It'd be really fun to do that.
Curious, are you more of a night owl then?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I was for a very long time and have since made that switch over to one of the annoying morning people. I try not to post too much of that on social as some sort of, I don't know, virtue signaling on that front, but I've certainly found,
you don't want to lose your cred.
At least for myself, waking up early, regardless of whether or not anyone else knows about it, has been something that's helped me for sure.
Yeah, you could just tell people that you're just still awake, and then you'd earn all that cred back.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, I haven't slept in 4 days. Wow. What a hero.
No, I value sleep far too much. So
yeah, see, I've gone through bouts of insomnia and not sleeping well, but I think on the whole, I generally sleep 7, 8 hours, even if I'm going to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It just pushes back the morning. I guess I have been moving up a little bit earlier, trying to do those responsible things. Once you hit your 40s, you got to go to the gym and try and just white knuckle hold on to what you've got. Don't let it slip away.
The gym was the reason. It just, quick side note, the only reason I even got started getting earlier and earlier was the fact that there were too many other motivated people at the gym at 6 that it took too long to get done what I wanted to get done. So I moved it earlier to 5, and then that was still took too long. And then it was like, okay, when does the gym open? They open at 4. Let's try that. And so that's been what works.
You're a 4 o'clock gym guy?
That's when I get there. Yeah. So it's like a 3:30 a.m. wake up without an alarm clock these days. So weird things happen once you have a grandkid. I'm pretty sure there's something biological that ticks. I'm not sure.
There's got to be some reason for it.
Yeah.
Dude, 3:30, man. That's like deep sleep time.
Yeah, you're just heading to bed by the time I wake up, so it's all good.
Yeah, not so much anymore. Tonight, I'm a pretty routine 12:30-ish nowadays. But I'm also doing less coding, so maybe those two things go hand in hand.
There's got to be a relationship there somewhere.
Are you in the trenches day to day, like coding and everything?
So my role currently is I lead 4 other teams that build the marketplaces where we sell wholesale vehicles, which is just essentially a fancier way to say the vehicles that when we buy your car at Carvana, if we can't sell it on our retail site because it's a couple of years old, we'll sell it to other used car dealers. We sell between 1 and 1.5 million cars that way per year through these systems, and I do still keep my hands on the code a little bit at work. I found that it certainly helps on the credibility standpoint if the person that's leading a group has somewhat of an idea of how to actually use the tools or is at least willing to do the things that you're asking someone else to do. But certainly outside of work, my current, passion project at least has me using a lot of AI tools to learn and write more code in other languages that easier than ever before. So it's been fun.
Yeah, just vibe code that stuff.
Yeah, vibe coding, it'd be an interesting topic for folks on another day too. I think at some point it will get the current gaps that exist with vibe coding where people can get to a certain level, but then maybe run into problems with security or performance. At some point, those gaps are going to get bridged by these tools, and it's going to just come down to purely who has the best ideas and who's willing to, throw some compute cycles to make the thing happen.
Totally.
Right now, we're at least still needed to bridge that last 10%, but I'm enjoying the ride and excited to see kind of where it leads us.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis that we have left the days of junior engineers. There's nothing today that I would give a junior engineer that I wouldn't first give to AI. And the AI is going to give me, at least right now, the same or better, honestly, better quality than something that a junior engineer would give to me. And they're going to do it in 95 to 99% less time.
Yeah.
And the downside is that if there's no junior engineers, in a few years, there's no senior engineers. And it's going to be nothing but maybe just AI pilots, right? We're going to have someone
it's for sure changing, right? Like the only thing I can say with certainty is that it's going to be different in 2 years than it is now. Like exactly how that turns out to be, I couldn't say, but I agree with you that there is a risk that if you don't start coaching some people up to, who is that senior engineer, but then the next question becomes like, do you need a senior engineer 2 years from now? Maybe, who knows?
Yeah,
right. So
right.
It's a wild ride, but, progress will prevail, and, albeit it might be a bumpy ride for some of us, especially whose, livelihood for a long time. And that comes down to identity again, right? Like for folks that are in the software world, ironically enough, some of the first jobs that AI can replace, it's software engineers. It's really good at reading software code and doing that. So having another way to make an impact in your life is something that, might not just be a choice that people make. It might be a flat out necessity for people to find a different way to provide for themselves.
Yep. Well, man, you've had a full life on many different avenues. So far, what has been the greatest mistake so far? What kind of question is that so far? Let's hope that your greatest mistake is in your past. What's been your greatest mistake?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that. I think that's a fair question to ask. Like, do you think that is your biggest mistake ahead of you or behind you? You would always hope it's behind. As I thought about this, I've certainly made plenty of mistakes through real estate, some of which I think everyone will make at some point. I'd like to at least cover a couple of them quickly. Sometimes you think you're always going to get more money on a flip, so you reject that first offer only to, realize, ooh, maybe that was the best price type of a thing. Or, certainly taking your own design preferences sometimes for me has been a spot where, I spent a bunch of money making something the way that I thought it would be. Maybe, hey, this is going to make this thing more valuable. I would love this. And at the end of the day, did it improve the ARV much? Maybe not, so, but I think there are more, I don't know, credible voices in that space maybe than mine, or more experienced on that front. My thought on the whole question around like, what is your biggest mistake? As I thought about like the whole direction that your podcast goes, is the take I was wanting to take was, how do we take those mistakes or those stumbling blocks? Sometimes they're our own cause, but how do we take those things that happen in our life and actually turn what looks like initially a stumbling block into a stepping stone? And I think that's what people get as they listen to these stories that are shared on your podcast. And so,
absolutely.
And that's the goal, right? It's like, hey, we're all going to make mistakes. How do we learn from it and get better? I like to think, I saw Rob Dial shared something recently that talked about that, what is for you or what is meant for you in the universe or God or whatever paradigm you come from a belief standpoint, can't get messed up. Like, you're not going to mess up something that's truly meant for you. It's going to work out. Coming at life from that perspective kind of paints an interesting picture when you look at certainly I would imagine in your life, there have been things that in the moment you probably thought, man, this is the worst possible thing that ever happened to me. Like, have you been in that moment before where you're like, I can't believe this happened, but maybe like 2, 3 years later, you're like, huh, if that bad thing didn't happen, it wouldn't have led to this. So for myself, like starting at the beginning, you go back to those .com days. I had a job offer to be the quote, this is back when it was still, it's kind of comical that the title was webmaster, but that was like the title for these jobs. And you could command good money with a job that sounded like you were playing Dungeons and Dragons. But I had a great job offer at the largest TV and radio station here locally. And I was, I was getting married in May. I was going to come back from our honeymoon and have that job. My wife at the time was set up for a promotion at her job. We had a place that we were going to move into, and go on your honeymoon, come back, and turns out things fell through on my wife's promotion. Things fell through on the place we were going to live. And I go into, my dad at the time was the president of that TV and radio station. And he says, hey, come talk to me before you go into work on Monday. I said, okay, go in and talk to him. He's like, well, our legal department had some concerns that if you were working at this position, it might somehow be construed as nepotism. So I'm afraid you actually can't work here anymore. So went from being on top of the world to, if you're a fan of Dumb and Dumber, where they come home and lament, like, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off. And it got real easy to be sort of mad at the universe for like 2-3 months. Like, man, I thought I had this all worked out. I was going to be able to provide for my family. This is going to be the perfect thing. Only to realize after the fact that all of those, like if those things had happened, I would have gone down this one path of my life. I never would have gotten into the relationships at the current job that I've now been at for over 24 years at this point, that has
Crazy.
provided incredibly well for my family. It's allowed me to do the things, have the experiences for my kids that we've wanted. And you realize, man, if that thing at the time that I thought was supposed to happen had happened, that means all of these other things wouldn't have happened. So my thought for anyone who's like in the moment of listening through, people's mistakes and what do we learn from them? Obviously, we all have our own big mistakes. My hope is that you can find some reason to be grateful for whatever happens in your life in the moment, and not have to wait for that 2020 hindsight to kick in. Because if we can realize that there's a plan, there's something working outside of us that's bigger than us, that and trust that it will guide us to where we can make the most impact, it actually takes a lot of pressure off, because you don't have to be worried about, oh man, what if I mess this up? You're not going to mess up what is meant for you unless you stop yourself from taking a chance, unless you sit on your hands and don't have the courage to just give it a shot. You might fail. You might try something and realize that, that wasn't the thing. But what I can promise is that by trying, it's going to lead you to what ultimately is your destiny on that front, because it's either going to work out or it's not. And either way, you're going to have information and to make a more informed choice after the fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do have to do the work. That would be
100%.
one way of messing it up. Maybe. I mean, I guess that's actually not even necessarily true itself, right? The thing that could lead you to the great thing in the future was you didn't do the work today, so then you had to learn a hard lesson, and in the future you put that into play, and then maybe that leads somewhere else. So yeah, you're kind of right. It's like your life today is merely the culmination of every step and misstep that you've made along the way.
Yeah. And the kind of the power that this puts in your own perspective when you take this approach is it lets you in this current present moment actually give your past meaning. So all of the quote mistakes, all of the things that have happened in my life that in the moment I thought, man, this isn't the way I pictured my life going, or this isn't what I wanted to have happen. When you can look back and sort of reframe all of those experiences being not just, optional, but necessary for you to get the learning and have all of the opportunities that you have in your current moment, um, all of a sudden that like takes any of the guilt, the shame, any sort of negative connotation to what's happened in your past and turn it into a positive. Like it becomes something that defines what made it possible for you to be where you're at today. And if you're not yet where you want to be yet, the great part is you have your future is just as bright as my future, which is just as bright as any millionaire's future. We all have the same chance to give it our all. And like you said, like if you're willing to do the work, you have to show up. But if you show up, I'm a firm believer that if your heart's in the right place, if you've got good intentions, if you're willing to stretch yourself, you're going to find the person and become the person that you ultimately will be happy with.
What's happened? Let's see. What's happened in your life that has led you to this wisdom?
Well, whether you call it wisdom or not is debatable depending on who you ask. But at least my perspective has been shaped by a couple things. I alluded to it earlier that I'd had a health challenge. That's another area where I realized that was the darkest moment of my life. And yet, if you'd ask me today, would I change it? Would I take that away? The answer is no. And to put a little context around it, basically a little over 2 years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my kids. It was a weekend. I think we'd gone out and gotten milkshakes from, a local shop here. And had that last bite of a milkshake. And if you've ever had like cold sensitivity, all of a sudden I felt like, ooh, maybe I got like a cavity or something, like something's going on in my tooth. I better be done with eating this thing. Well, about a minute later, I go into my room to brush my teeth, get ready for bed because I'm done with this milkshake. That pain spreads up into my jaw and it's really, really intense. I'm like, oh man, I better call like the dentist like right away because something's funky. And then my ear all of a sudden feels like it's being lit on fire. And then it was like, the only way to accurately describe it would be like somebody took a screwdriver and hooked it up to a car battery and jabbed it into the side of my head, into the middle of my brain. It was all of a sudden I had electricity shooting from my temple into the middle of my head, pulsing just over and over and over.
Ooh.
For about 2 hours. And I thought I was dying. Like it took me to my knees, fetal position on my bathroom floor, my wife asking what's going on. I'm like, I have no idea, but I think I'm dying. Like that's the level that I'm at. And turns out like I'd been seeing a neurologist for a different condition at the time. And which was, once again, that was one of those things where if I hadn't been dealing with this previous neurological condition, I would not have had the ability to get in right away to talk to somebody. But he's like, oh, I know what this is. It's called trigeminal neuralgia. He says, the good news is we know what it is. The bad news is we call it suicide disease because if we can't take care of it, most people will choose to end their own life because it's known as the most painful disease that you can experience. So I'm like, well, that sounds not stellar, but we tried all sorts of different drugs, the types of anticonvulsants that made it so I couldn't remember the name of my neighbor across the street. I couldn't remember, like my whole job, in software, your whole job is paid for your brain. Like you're not swinging a hammer. You're paid for how can you think about very complicated problems and building scalable systems. Well, when you can't like remember the term like recursion or something when you're on a call with, 50 other people that report to you, all of a sudden I start seeing my entire livelihood start to slip away. 2 months after this happened on this side, it hits me on the left side. And to have it on one is really, really bad. To have it on two is way less common. And especially to have it as intense on both. And so it just kind of felt like I was just getting hit after hit after hit. Well, in the middle of all of this, we crossed over the new year and my company changed insurance. So all of the doctors that I'd been seeing, all of the surgeries, stuff that I had lined up, all of a sudden I was not covered. So I had back to square one, and got to the spot where I felt like I was at a dead end. And this is where, like, those moments where you think, okay, the worst, because it got so bad, because it was like an extremely rare case, my wife just started sending out all of my anything that she had on me from a medical record perspective anywhere, to the Mayo Clinic, to Cleveland Clinic, to Stanford Medical Center. And the the world's best surgeon looked at my case and picked it up immediately and said, okay, this is someone that I can help. He's dealing with it on two sides. The fact that it was so bad meant that I got pushed basically right to the top. So I got into the best level of care anywhere in the world. But that happened because it was really bad. And so it kind of just makes you think, like, there are, your situation, whatever you're dealing with right now, it might feel like, man, could things get any worse? But perhaps the situation that you're in has you just like, maybe you're just like one corner away from turning things around, or maybe you're just like one phone call away or one relationship away from opportunities opening that you had no idea were possible. Like, I didn't know that how I was going to get this fixed, but my wife believed, and she did the work, right? She showed up. She just kept putting the thing out. Somebody's going to pick this up. Somebody's going to figure it out. And so I went to Palo Alto, we did the surgeries. You do them each side 6 weeks apart because there's a high likelihood or high risk of losing your hearing through this. They basically put a big 2-inch hole in the back of my head and went in and wrapped the arteries with Teflon. So I'm basically like a very expensive human frying pan at this point. But for the most part, I am completely symptom free. I would say I'm like 98% better, and like feel like I have a second chance at life. And so every morning that I wake up from this point forward, I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I have a chance. It doesn't mean that I don't have bad days or crap days or days where you're like, man, I just don't want to do this thing today. And yet I have to just always remind myself that it is such a blessing for us to be here, to have the chance to struggle in the struggles that we're in, to have even there are people who would do anything to have the problems that me and you have. Like,
For
that's
sure.
a pretty humbling thing to think about. Like, that the opportunities that we've been blessed with where we're at are immense. And so all I can do from this point forward is to try to show gratitude for everything, whether it's good or if it's bad. Because even the things that are bad, history's shown to me that most of the time they can actually turn into something good.
That is an excellent perspective. And it's hard to imagine not wanting to change the thing, right? Remove even the memory of the pain, which sounds like it was quite intense. But if the removal of that costs you now this changed perspective on your life, that would, uh, like you said, that's not a bargain you're willing to make now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be who I am. Like, going through that was the process that introduced me to who I am. When you want to purify gold, you have to burn it at a very high temperature to burn off the dross, so to speak. Like, you have to burn off those impurities. And so there is a cost to it. But the 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 flip side is worth it. So I wouldn't trade it. Like, I know, like, this situation that I have, like, it could come back, but now I know who to talk to. I know that I can make it through it. And so, if that happens again, I'm going to do my darndest to, face it with more grace, but I have more information now to navigate that more effectively than I did the first time.
Mm. Well, that's excellent. What's what's the future like?
The future's bright. We're going to, looking into 2026, like everyone else. Sure, you're looking at plans like, how do we make this year incrementally better than last? Or, I don't want
Exponentially.
just an incrementally better year. I want like a transformatively better year, right? Like, as great a blessing as we've had, why not? Why not, Dave? And why don't you guys go out and just crush it? Like you're going to, like, right? Like, let's not think small, let's think big. The mantra that I came out of for my life through this experience was love big, think big. So find a reason every day to make sure that the people that you're interacting with um, know that you love them. Don't miss an opportunity. It's great to say it. It's even better to show it, because that it truly is the best way to say it. But on the thinking big side, what can we do to, not just improve the income for my family? What could you do to improve the income and the livelihood of hundreds or thousands of families? Um, and why not you? Why not me? So that's the type of planning that we're going into. So um, we're locking in on what that looks like from a strategy standpoint, from both a real estate perspective and from the technology perspective. Looking forward to finishing up my plans, and would love to follow up with you once I've got it dialed in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you and your wife are actually pretty active on social media too, right? You guys do high effort content, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm trying to categorize my own level of effort. Is it high effort? I'll put it this way. I'm not afraid to look silly on social media. I'll put it like that. Like, I think life's too short to not have a little fun. Um, so absolutely, you can follow me at the Owen Mecham on Instagram. From there, you can get to anywhere else through links on there. And my wife, if you want to follow her as well, as the Mary Mecham. If you want to see
She's a
some silly
copycat.
antics.
I'm gonna put that out there. She's a copycat of you.
She's way better than me. Like, if you when you talk about this, like, I don't know, 50-50 relationship, like, I feel blessed to be in a relationship with her. She makes me a better person for sure.
Dude, I way batted outside my level here.
Yeah. Well, that we've got that in common too. Like, I look at what you and Kim have been able to do together, and I love seeing other couples that are doing their best to kind of build their futures together, um, and for their family, and the way that you guys have your kids involved too. I think you're setting a great example for folks to show how you can be successful, not just in your business and not just in your family, but how, like, it's more important to have work-life integration than work-life balance, if that's a thing. So
Yeah, I've been saying similar things, right? It's not about a work-life balance. It's about work-life integration. For sure. Well, dude, I hope that 2026 is a monster year for you and your family. Um, right now, we're 3 days away from the new year, and yeah, all expectations for greatness.
absolutely, let's do it.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Well, I'll probably see you next week.
Will do. We'll see you in Miami, where it's a little bit warmer than here.
All right, buddy. Well, I will see you soon.